If I was to tell you that a rock appeared in this room that I'm filming in from nothing, you would say that I am not a valid source of information.
Don't be so silly. That's not why we think you're not a valid source of information. It's because you claim that the Earth is only 6,000 years old.
That I've bought into a lie. Well, that's exactly what atheism is. It's the idea that everything could have appeared from nothing with no God. That is a belief in magic. That's mysticism and sorcery. That is not science.
I am not a valid source of information.
And hang on a second, saying that atheism is a belief system or a religion of some sort is like saying that not playing football is a sport. Please subscribe. Right, before we dive into today's video, I wanted to give a huge shout out to the sponsor of today's video, Extra Wallet. So these folks are the brains behind the world's first trackable wallet. They're all about crafting sustainable, super handy wallets and bags, as well as accessories to supercharge your day. Check this out. Their wallet is a game changer. Look how small it is. It's literally half the size of traditional wallets. And it can fit over 12 cards and cash. No cash in my wallet because I'm poor. Oh, and it's got this really cool trigger mechanism. I just love gadgets, what can I say? You can fan your cards out with just one click. Talk about easy access. But there's more. It's got built-in RFID tracking to keep your data safe from those sneaky skimmers. And it's made with eco-friendly stuff like vegan Italian leather and aerospace-grade aluminium. Plus, the solar-powered tracker, which fits inside the wallet, lets you track your wallet straight from your phone. So if you lose your wallet, you can use the two-way ringing feature and you can get separation alerts. Oh, and guess what? Just 2 hours of sunlight gives this bad boy a charge that lasts 3 months. Now, the Extra Wallet isn't just smart, it's a perfect gift for someone special. So click on the link in my description below and use my code Creaky for a whopping 25% off. That's 20% from Extra. And I said I wanted to give you an extra 5% because I didn't think 20 was enough. Anyway, let's get back to today's video.
And so I've actually asked certain atheists, would you become a Christian if Christianity were true? And they will say no.
Oh my word, that's such a stupid thing to say. Nobody is questioning whether Christianity itself is true. Of course it is. There are literally millions of Christians spread across the world. It's the things you believe that aren't true, like, for example, the Earth only being 6,000 years old.
And that shows us that they're more about emotions. They're more about feelings and experiences instead of demonstrated fact.
I am not a valid source of information.
You are kidding, right? Now, on the topic of demonstrated facts, I honestly don't know what to say to that. Is he actually saying that the Bible has factual information in it?
Look, if you're an atheist, there's no way to determine what's right and wrong.
I am not a valid source of information.
Okay, so how do Christians know the difference between right and wrong then? Is it because God tells you in the Bible? So think about it like this, Matt. If you and I were both on the top of a really tall building and there were people stood in front of us and we both pushed them over the edge and they both died, does that mean I've done nothing wrong because I don't believe in God? Therefore, there is no difference between right or wrong for people like me? Because that's what it sounds like you're saying.
And so everything is based on feelings. Remember, it's about a feeling rather than what fact is.
I am not a valid source of information.
And what science has shown us, and the things that we can know for sure.
Okay, so what sort of things has science shown us then? One example springs to mind. Science shows us that the Earth is 4.5 billion years old.
And so we're left with emotional experiences and just feelings that would tell us what to do if there is no God. And a lot of people are going to have a lot of different feelings. And so it's going to be nothing but chaos if we take an atheistic perspective of the origin of the universe and of our existence.
I am not a valid source of information.
Why the hell do you insist on showing Adolf Hitler in a lot of your videos? I've got a theory. It's because you want atheists, people like me, to defend Adolf Hitler, which none of us are ever gonna do because he was an absolute scumbag. Which is probably why you seem to like him so much. But he wasn't a straightforward atheist by any stretch of the imagination. Adolf Hitler was raised Catholic.
And one thing we need to understand is that atheists actually have the worst statistics in the world for doing some of the most reprehensible things known to man.
I am not a valid source of information.
So how do you know that? Because there is no reliable or comprehensive data linking religious belief or lack thereof with the likelihood of committing a crime like murder. Most crime statistics don't track the religious belief of perpetrators because it's not a relevant legal or criminological factor. The reasons behind criminal behaviour are complex and often involve a mix of social, economic, psychological and environmental factors. So Matt, if you're just going to make things up, at least try to make up things that people can't easily verify for themselves.
They lead the world in school shootings.
I am not a valid source of information.
So the answer to this is more or less exactly the same as the answer I gave to his last point. How do you know? There is no data available. But it's a tricky one for me because I can't cut it out just because he's telling a lie, because if I cut out every lie that Matt Powell told in one of his videos, then I would just be reacting to a blank screen.
That means there's a correlation between atheism and school shootings.
I am not a valid source of information.
You must need to carry a fire extinguisher in your pocket, Matt. The number of times in a day your pants must suddenly burst into flames baffles me. How do you explain Jim Jones then? And that was rhetorical. We know you say he's an atheist, but he wasn't. Jim Jones was the leader of the People's Temple, a cult that ended in the tragic Jonestown massacre in 1978, where over 900 people died, most from cyanide poisoning. And he claimed to be a messiah figure, blending Christian beliefs with his own teachings. And then there's Warren Jeffs, the leader of the Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, a polygamist offshoot of the mainstream Mormon Church. He was convicted in 2011 for 2 counts of child... Well, I'm not going to say it and get my video demonetized, but I'm sure you can fill in the blanks yourselves. For which he's currently serving a life sentence plus 20 years.
Atheists also lead the world in drug abuse.
I am not a valid source of information.
Now, is this another statistic that you've just plucked out of thin air, Matt, or is there actually some truth to this?
Drugs put you into a fantasy land, yet they'll declare that we're living in fantasy land as Christians.
I am not a valid source of information.
That just simply isn't true. I don't think you live in a fantasy land because you're a Christian. I think you live in a fantasy land because you're a Christian that believes the earth is only 6,000 years old.
Yeah, that's not good. You don't want to be associated with that. Atheists also lead the world in suicide.
I am not a valid source of information.
And that's a very sad thing. That's why I don't want you to be one anymore if you are one.
You really are a horrible little boy, aren't you? Suicide is influenced by a multitude of factors, including mental health issues, economic conditions, and personal relationships. The presence or absence of religious belief is just one aspect of a person's identity and their life experiences. And it's also important to remember that correlation does not imply causation. Higher or lower rates of suicide amongst atheists versus Christians or other religious groups might reflect other underlying issues, such as social attitudes towards mental health, availability of support services, and individual circumstances. But based on how accurate the rest of the information you've shared in this video has been, I'm going to take this with a huge pinch of salt anyway.
I am not a valid source of information.
So if you are poisoning people's minds and telling them there's no creator, magic is real. We appeared from nothing, just like a rock appeared out of nowhere. Whole universe just appeared out of nowhere, folks.
You know, to me, the problem with people like Matt Powell, Kent Hovind, Ken Ham, we've all seen them, and people like me may be partly to blame for this. They seem to be under the misapprehension that atheists all meet up and then discuss how they're going to stop people from being Christians. All being an atheist means is that you do not believe in God.
When you get somebody to believe a big lie like that, that actually does affect their understanding of the world.
I am not a valid source of information.
Hang on a second, is he still talking about atheism? Or is he now talking about Christianity and more specifically young earth creationism?
And the Invisible Man has a special list of 10 things he does not want you to do. And if you do any of these 10 things, he has a special place full of fire and smoke and burning and torture and anguish, where he will send you to live and suffer and burn and choke and scream and cry forever and ever till the end of time. But he loves you.
People are so confused today, and you'll find that many will act like animals.
You know I said a few minutes ago that Matt is a horrible little boy? Well, I rest my case. Why say that people behave like animals while showing a trans person on the screen?
And the reason they act like animals is because they believe we are animals.
No, we don't believe we are animals. We know we are from the family Hominidae, also known as the great apes. And this family includes orangutans, gorillas, chimpanzees, bonobos, and humans. And we share a common ancestor with these species, which is evident in our DNA.
Atheists also lead the world in drunkenness.
I am not a valid source of information.
Drunkenness puts you into fantasy land. It is a poison-induced experience that you get from drinking alcohol.
You know, I'm very quickly starting to realize that with this video from Matt Powell, I needn't have bothered to do any reading or to come up with witty replies. I could have literally just said, "That is not true," after each statement he's made.
And putting a poisonous substance into your body. Let me tell you, people often say that the devil does not exist, yet they do things that really can only be explained by the intervention of Satan on this earth.
But didn't Jesus Christ turn water into wine in one of the biblical stories? Or was that a special type of wine just for the big JC and the devil had nothing to do with it?
How do you get all these terrible things that happen? How do you get all these horrible people that exist that go and trick other people? How does that happen?
Well, it's usually because their parents were religious as well, Matt.
The existence of Satan perfectly explains why this happens.
I am not a valid source of information.
Well, luckily for us, Satan doesn't exist either. Well, luckily for us, Satan doesn't exist either. He's just a concept thought up by some religious nutjob to keep other religious people in line. You know, be good or else. That sort of thing.
You don't want to be proud to be an atheist, because it's nothing to be proud of.
What, and being a completely deplorable young earth creationist hate preacher is?
In fact, like I said, you're joining a group of people that leads the world in the most reprehensible acts.
I am not a valid source of information.
Right, look, I know there are some organisations for atheists, and if you're the type of atheist that wants to be involved in that sort of thing, that's all fine and dandy. It's not for me. For me, all being an atheist represents is the fact that I do not believe in God. How many times have I got to repeat that?
And some of you atheists out there will say that Christians are hypocritical. I can't be a Christian because I'm not going to be a hypocrite. Hypocrisy isn't even wrong if there's no God. So you can't even have a moral argument in this case because there's no objective morality to begin with.
I am not a valid source of information.
You know, that must be one of the stupidest things that young earth creationists like to repeat as if it's some sort of mantra. Morality is not a divine command. It's a human conversation. Compassion, empathy, and cooperation are traits that have helped societies thrive, not just religious beliefs.
And then number two, just because certain Christians fail to live the Bible doesn't mean that the Bible isn't true.
I am not a valid source of information.
Right, so it's not just the atheists that are terrible people then. In your opinion, Matt, even other Christians are terrible people if they don't buy your particular brand of BS about the age of the earth.
On the origin of life, we win. Christianity comes out on top.
I am not a valid source of information.
But they will mock the virgin birth, say, oh, how could a virgin conceive? Atheists believe that rocks conceived life.
I am not a valid source of information.
Yeah, we don't believe that though, do we? That's just something that creationist morons say in a vain effort to discredit what actually created the universe, the earth, and everything in and on it.
You can look it up. You can type in online. Just type in these words. You owe your life to rock. Brings up a paper that explains why secular humanism is a valid explanation and we descended from minerals that were eroded from rocks.
I am not a valid source of information.
This again. Now, I'm not going to go over it for the 100th time, but I'll think you'll find, young Matthew, that it's young earth creationists who believe we came from rocks Does the Bible not say that God created man from the dust on the ground? And as dust is a product of rocks, it sounds more like that's what you clowns believe. You see, the thing is, we don't need to believe anything because we've got this thing called scientific evidence, which can back up everything we say. And as for you, Matt...
You couldn't back up a phone, you cunt.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm all Matt Powell out for today. Now, just quickly before you bugger off, have you watched episode 1 of the Creaky Blinder show yet? If you haven't, do me a favour and go and give it a watch. I'll link it below this video and probably in the end card. I'm going to try and get as much feedback as possible and it's doing amazingly well so far, so I'm one happy camper. Thank you all so much for watching and I will see you in a couple of days. Oh, and just quickly, have you got anything you'd like to add, Matthew Powell?
I am not a valid source of information.
Oh, you're still here then. I hope you enjoyed this video and maybe even learned something new. If you did, then you'll probably enjoy this video as well. Don't forget to hit the like button if you haven't already and subscribe if you're new. And I will see you all again very soon or in a few minutes if you do decide to watch this recommended video. Love you, bye.